psychopath whom women laugh at behind his back, but I can also kill people en masse. I'm so happy, unquote. Chinese President Xi Jinping said he had meant to help President Trump deal with the North Korean leader, but he had a manicure appointment that day and it slipped his mind. It's Mailbag Day here on the Andrew Klavan Show, so say a fond farewell to all your problems. We're about to solve them. Trigger warning, I am Andrew Klavan, and this is the Andrew Klavan Show.
I feel hunky-dunky, life is tickety-boo. Birds are winging, also singing hunky-dunky-doo. Ship-shape, tipsy-topsy, the world is zippity-zing. It's a wonderful day, hurrah, hooray! It makes me want to sing. Oh, hurrah, hooray! Oh, hooray, hurrah!
All right, Mailbag Day. You know, we have a mailbag question today, which kind of hits to the core of everything that we've been talking about, or at least one of the cores of everything we've been talking about. And the question is, when you're making political decisions, what's more important, the character of the person you're voting for or the results you're looking for? And I think that this is really some of the stuff we're dealing with all the sexual material, but it's also something else. There's a great line in the poet T.S. Eliot. Let me see if I just want to make sure I get it exactly right. It's from his Four Quartets, which is his lesser known poem because it was written after he converted to Christianity. So, of course, the critics love The Wasteland because it's about the wasteland, how meaningless everything is, but they never go to Four Quartets, which is a beautiful, very personal poem he wrote after his conversion. And at one point, he's listening to the birds in this garden, and he says, the bird says to him, "Go, go, go," says the bird. "Humankind cannot bear very much reality." And one of the things we are seeing now, right now, is that Trump has mastered the fact that the conversations that we have, so many of the political conversations that we have, don't take place in reality. They have nothing to do. I mean, Scott Adams, who we spoke to a couple of days ago, he's been talking about this, that people don't act rationally, but it's more than that. See, this world that we are in, that you and I are in right now, this world of commentary, of radio, people talking and giving their opinions, doesn't exist in reality. This is not reality. In this world, there's moral certainty. In this world, outrage sells because it makes you feel so good about yourself. In this world, you know there are good guys and bad guys, and people will tell you Donald Trump is the great man or he's an evildoer and all this stuff. None of that is true. None of it is true. But truth, with its nuance, with its shades of gray, with its difficult moral decisions that taint you when you make them, that world is not so popular. It doesn't sell as well. I can tell you this because I've been living in that world and writing that world all my life, and I can tell you, one of the biggest selling thriller writers, I mean, I've written crime fiction all my life, one of the biggest selling crime writers in the world, and I'm not going to name him, is one of the worst writers. And he is one of the worst writers. Listen, there are some great best-selling crime writers. I'm not saying anything about that. But there's this one guy, and and I hear he's a lovely person, and his books sell by the millions. And I have never been able to get past page 10. Why? Because the villains in his piece are so villainous, and the good guys the good guys are always kissing their grandmothers and bringing them pie and all this. And I just think, gag me with a spoon, But this is what we're all hungry for, and what Trump has figured out, as we're going to see today, we're going to talk about today, is he's figured out that he can play both things at the same time. He can play a different game in reality than he's playing in this kind of, what will we call it? The sort of make-believe-o-verse, the fantasy verse. He's playing two different games with his tweets and with his actions, and it's working out really well for him because while everybody's commenting on it hysterically, he is on a roll. He is doing really, really well right now. So there was a tweet today about one of my favorite sponsors, Man Crates, where somebody tweeted me how wonderful he'd got a Man Crate for his dad and how great it was. But he forgot to put in my name to get the discount. So he didn't get the discount. Now this is bad twice. First, it says something about the intelligence level of our audience. I said to him, I tweeted him back. I said, "You didn't know how to spell my name, right? Because we never tell you how to spell my name." But he didn't do this. And you have to do that because it helps us, because otherwise our sponsors don't know that I'm the one sending you there, and they will leave us, and then I will be sitting here talking and there won't be a camera in front of me. I'll just be talking to myself. So you want to help us out by supporting our sponsors. Supporting our sponsors not only gives you stuff, but it gives us stuff. It keeps us on the air. And this is an easy one for you to support because we're giving you free food. I mean, what does it take, people? Free food. I mean, my audience, I always worry. They go like, do I want free food or do I want to pay for food? Because I know, what happens is the smart people listen to Shapiro and I get you guys, that's the problem. But Blue Apron will give you free food. Plus, it is good food. Blue Apron is a service that delivers ingredients to your house, all measured, all cut up for you, and then you get a little card with very simple instructions. I know they're simple because my wife says these are simple as she makes these because they're not simple enough for me. But you can cook in your house. You can cook meals, the kind of meals that you would usually get in a restaurant, and they really are good, and they're really different, and they're it's like it's home cooking, but it's home cooking that you would get in a restaurant. Let me see if I have a list. If I have some of the. Oh yeah, I have pictures. I should have sent you the pictures so you could put them up on the wall, but it's like these things, I can't hold them up, but it's like butternut squash pasta with kale and brown butter walnuts. I mean, that's a classic LA thing. You would go in and order seared steaks and garlic butter with oven fries and romaine salad. They have these great big French fries, barramundi and mixed mushrooms with jasmine rice and Napa cabbage. I'm looking at the pictures of these things. They look great. I should have sent them in so you could put them up. But you got to use the code. Blue Apron is treating my listeners to their first dinner a $30 value for free if you visit blueapron.com/Andrew. Think you can handle that? Come on. So check out you got to prove to our sponsors that you can do this. So check out this week's menu and get your $30 off with free shipping at blueapron.com/Andrew. It's a better way to cook. Comes right to your home. You do it in your kitchen and you get a restaurant level meal. All right, let's talk about Matt Lauer first, because this is obviously a big story. I mean, it's only one of many big stories. One woman complained and he's out of there. He is gone. And the rumor spread by the New York Post, I believe, was that while he was at the Olympics in 2014, he forced himself upon a woman. Now, they said, I was joking about it before, but they said that he had many, many affairs with staffers, and people didn't like him, apparently. They really were just only too happy to get off his show if they could. But he had many affairs, but those were consensual. This wasn't. Variety, the Showbiz trade paper, and the New York Times were both apparently working on the story and closing in, and NBC said that's enough. Matt Lauer immediately joined with John Conyers, the Democrat in Congress who's been assaulting women, and Al Franken, the Democrat in the Senate who's been assaulting women, and they gave a three-person press conference together.
A maid? Everybody ought to have a maid. Everybody ought to have a serving girl, a loyal and unswerving girl who's quiet than a mouse. Oh, think of her at the dustbin, especially when she's just been traipsing about. Oh, wouldn't she be delightful living in?
Giving out.
Everybody ought to have a maid.
I can tell we're going to start to get letters that I'm not taking this seriously, but I think this attitude is just about done. So let me just play Savannah Guthrie, his co-host, coming on and tearfully delivering the news.
And Hoda, I mean, for the moment, all we can say is that we are heartbroken. I'm heartbroken for Matt. He is my dear, dear friend and my partner, and he is beloved by many, many people here. And I'm heartbroken for the brave colleague who came forward to tell her story, and any other women who have their own stories to tell. Mm-hmm. And we are grappling with a dilemma that so many people have faced these past few weeks. How do you reconcile your love for someone with the revelation that they have behaved badly? Mm-hmm. And I don't know the answer to that.
First, just don't get in the elevator with them is one thing. This is one of a spate of left-wing people in the media who are going down today. National Public Radio Chief News Editor David Sweeney left after being accused of sexual harassment by multiple women, and Garrison Keillor, who could be the least funny human being in America. He did that Prairie Home Companion that leftists were always sitting around going, "Oh, it's so witty, and you would listen to it, and it was just like having someone take a blanket and put it on your head, and then leave you there and pour water on top of the blanket. It was just awful. But apparently he is gone. He says the story. He says he was fired over a story that I think is more interesting and more complicated than the version Minnesota Public Radio heard, but he is gone. And, who was it? Jim Garrity over at National Review, smart guy. He tweeted today, picture traveling back in time a year and telling people that by November 2017, sex harassment allegations had not derailed the Trump presidency, but had effectively ended the careers of Matt Lauer, Charlie Rose, Mark Halperin, Harvey Weinstein, Kevin Spacey, Leon Wieselter, all these left-wing media figures. I mean, they must be thanking God for Roger Ailes and Bill O'Reilly. If they didn't have Roger Ailes and Bill O'Reilly to point at. And here is Lauer. This was wonderful. Our friends over at the Newsbusters put this up. This is O'Reilly recently. Like, the hypocrisy is strong with this one. Here he is grilling Bill O'Reilly on the allegations against him.
You were probably the last guy in the world that they wanted to fire because you were the guy that the ratings and the revenues were built on. You carried that network on your shoulders for a lot of years. So doesn't it seem safe to assume that the people at Fox News were given a piece of information or given some evidence that simply made it impossible for you to stay on at Fox News? But you don't let your number one guy go unless you have information that you think makes him.
That's not true.
Did you ever send a lewd text or email to another employee at Fox News?
No.
Did you ever have any human resources cases brought against you?
Every company in this country, including this one, Comcast, has these lawsuits. Every one.
But think about those 5 women and what they did. They came forward and filed complaints against the biggest star at the network they worked at. Think of how intimidating that must have been, how nerve-wracking that must have been. Doesn't that tell you how strongly they felt about the way they were treated by you?
I mean, that's amazing. It's an amazing piece of video. What's amazing about it is if I had the skill to manipulate video, what I would have done was just put Matt Lauer in the chair. He could have asked himself all those questions. Because here, there's some people who say that Bill O'Reilly was paid so much that Fox didn't actually mind getting rid of him, that he was costing more than he was bringing in, essentially, or at least detracting so much from his profits that it wasn't really as big a thing as that. But Matt Lauer was their big guy. I mean, I thought he was a leftist, biased, crummy reporter. I always thought he was completely personalityless. What do I know? The guy was a big star. So Trump tweets, because this is what I want to talk about, is like that all this stuff is happening and Trump is tweeting. There's actual news going on. Yesterday was a big, big news day. And Trump is tweeting. So he tweets, so now that Matt Lauer is gone, when will the fake news practitioners at NBC be terminating the contract of Phil Griffin? And will they terminate low ratings Joe Scarborough based on the unsolved mystery that took place in Florida years ago? Investigate, he says. This is a reference to an intern. It's a tragic story, but it's unbelievable. When Scarborough was a congressman, he had an intern in his office, and she died in his office. She was found dead in his office. And there was no evidence of foul play. The coroner investigated and said that she had she had fainted essentially and banged her head. She lost consciousness because of a heart problem and fell and hit her head on a desk. But a couple of months later, Scarborough stepped down, saying he wanted to spend more time with his family. So, that it gets tossed around the internet, and by the time it's finished, by the time it's finished on the internet, it's like Scarborough strangling her to death. But there's no indication of that, and it's all investigated. And the other thing who's the other guy? Phil Griffin. He just had a bunch of embarrassing interviews. I don't really know what he's talking about with that. But he also has another tweet. Trump had another tweet. Wow, Matt Lauer was just fired from NBC for inappropriate sexual behavior in the workplace. But when will the top executives at NBC and Comcast be fired for putting out so much fake news? Check out Andy Lack's past. Now, Andy Lack is the head of NBC, and he is under fire because he basically sat on the Ronan Farrow story that exposed Harvey Weinstein, and he stopped, well, we don't know if he did it, but there was just, it seemed that Saturday Night Live was stopped from making jokes about Weinstein. And he also is the guy who they sat on the interview with Juanita Broderick. Have I got that right? Yes. He sat on the interview with Juanita Broaddrick when she accused Bill Clinton of rape. That was part of Andy Lack's past too. So there are all these questions that's coming up. So that's what Trump is doing, right? Trump is, and everybody's shocked. Oh my God! Now the story's about Trump. What a terrible thing! He tweeted this. He tweeted that. It's like, it's not taking place in reality. What is taking place in reality is what happened yesterday with the tax reform bill, which is that it passed through a major committee procedure to go into a vote, and senators who had said that they were going to oppose it, the guy from Wisconsin and Bob Corker, who Trump had this feud, are saying, nah, we kind of want to get to yes here. We want to do this thing. So while everybody's screaming and yelling about Trump acting in this kind of make-believe world that we're all in right this moment, we're living in this world right this moment where there are good guys and bad guys and moral certainties and all this stuff, that Trump is playing in that world, but he's working in this other world. He completely trolled. He's trolling everybody. He is trolling everybody. He trolled Chuck and Nancy yesterday. This really did crack me up. He invited Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi to come and talk to him to negotiate about the deadline that's coming up with the funding the government, right? The government shuts down, I can't remember, December 8th, I think it is. It shuts down December 8th unless they fund it. This usual thing that keeps coming up and keeps coming up. And he invited them to a meeting, and then he tweeted, meeting with Chuck and Nancy today about keeping government open and working. Problem is, they want illegal immigrants flooding into our country unchecked, and they're weak on crime, and they want to substantially raise taxes. I don't see a deal. So Chuck and Nancy refused to show up, and Trump has the meeting with Republicans, and he has chairs on each side of him that are empty. And just like you do at a debate when the person fails to show up, and they had little nameplates, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi. So Chuck, let's start with Schumer. Schumer comes out and he makes this statement about Trump's tweet. That's crying Chuck. Now I'll play a different Chuck cut and see if you can tell which one is the real Schumer.
With his tweet this morning, President Trump made sure that today's meeting is nothing but a photo op. These issues are far too serious for these kinds of games. Mr. President, it's time to stop tweeting and start leading.
Yes, I'm not sure who's winning this, because now here's the actual meeting, right? And the press shows up before the meeting, and here is Trump. This is cut 2 on the no-shows.
The other thing, they want tax increases, and we want major tax decreases. So they decided not to show up. They've been all talk, and they've been no action. And now it's even worse. Now it's not even talk. So they're not showing up for the meeting. I will say this, in light of the missile launch, probably they'll be here fairly quickly, or at least discussions will start taking place fairly quickly.
Right, so to me, he just made Chuck and Nancy look utterly ridiculous. And like I said, meanwhile, in real life, okay, the AP is now reporting the U.S. economy expanded at 3.3% annual pace in the third quarter. That's the fastest in 3 years. Like I said, the Republicans took a significant step toward passing their sweeping tax overhaul on Tuesday. And if you read the New York Times, a former newspaper, they're going insane over this tax thing. I'll get back to the tax thing in a minute. First, let's talk about stamps. Because I know you were sitting there saying, yes, taxes, but what about stamps? If you want to get stamps, right, you go to the post office. The post office does a terrific job, but to get there, you got to drive to the post office. You got to wait online. You got to hope you go according to their hours and